In the summer of 2025, America finds itself at the center of a constitutional crisis unlike any in recent memory. The nation is gripped by uncertainty, not because of a war or a scandal, but because of a question that strikes at the heart of everyday life. Who truly controls the prices we pay for the things we need? This time, the battle isn't unfolding in the halls of Congress, but in the marble chambers of the Supreme Court, where the fate of economic policy, and perhaps the very structure of American government, hangs in the balance. At stake is a deceptively simple question. Who gets to decide how much we pay for groceries, clothes, and everyday essentials? Is it the lawmakers we elect, or can the president act alone when invoking emergency powers? The debate has reached a fever pitch. Congress claims its constitutional right to regulate commerce, while the president asserts sweeping authority under emergency statutes, arguing that extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. President Trump's unprecedented use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, to impose broad tariffs, has ignited a fierce legal battle. Supporters say it's a bold move to protect American interests, but critics warn it's a dangerous expansion of executive power. Protesters gather outside the White House, while heated debates rage in Congress. Many fear that allowing the president to unilaterally reshape economic policy could set a precedent that undermines the checks and balances at the core of American democracy. Critics argue that a law originally designed for national security emergencies is now being wielded as a tool to bypass Congress and rewrite the nation's economic rules, raising urgent questions about the separation of powers. The Supreme Court's upcoming decision will not only determine the limits of presidential authority, but also set a lasting precedent for how America responds to future crises, economic or otherwise. The outcome will shape the future balance of power between the branches of government, redefining the roles of Congress, the president, and the courts for generations to come. For millions of Americans, this isn't just a distant legal battle or an abstract debate. It's a question that affects their wallets, their families, and their daily lives. The stakes are personal. The cost of living, the stability of household budgets, and the ability to plan for the future all hang in the balance as the nation waits for the court's ruling. Ultimately, this crisis is about more than just prices or politics. It's about the rules of democracy and who gets to write them. To understand this crisis, look back to the Constitution's roots. The founders, wary of unchecked power, gave Congress, not the president, the authority to tax and regulate trade. This power of the purse was designed to keep the executive in check and ensure public debate over economic decisions. For generations, tariffs were set through open congressional debate, not presidential decree. Today's legal battle questions whether Congress has surrendered too much power to the executive. Critics warn that letting the president declare economic emergencies and impose taxes alone undermines the very foundation of American democracy. If unchecked, any president could bypass Congress on major economic issues, the stakes preserving the balance of power the founders intended. Throughout the 20th century, the balance of power over trade policy in the United States began to shift. While the Constitution originally gave Congress the authority to regulate commerce with foreign nations, over time, lawmakers gradually handed more of that responsibility to the president. This shift didn't happen overnight. It was the result of changing global dynamics, economic crises, and the need for faster, more flexible responses to international challenges. Landmark laws like the Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act of 1934, passed during the Great Depression, and the Trade Act of 1974, during a period of economic uncertainty, gave presidents new tools. These acts allowed the executive branch to negotiate trade deals directly with other countries and to respond to unfair trade practices, though always within certain boundaries set by Congress. The idea was to make U.S. trade policy more nimble and effective in a rapidly changing world. Even as these powers expanded, Congress tried to maintain oversight. Lawmakers built in reporting requirements, periodic reviews, and the ability to revoke or amend presidential authority. The system was designed to be flexible but not unchecked, ensuring that the president could act quickly but not without accountability. In recent years, the Trump administration argued that its aggressive use of trade powers, such as imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum, was simply the latest chapter in this long tradition of executive action. Supporters say these moves were necessary to protect American industries and jobs in a fiercely competitive global market. But critics, including many lawmakers and business leaders, argue that using emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs on allies and rivals alike goes far beyond what Congress ever intended. They warn that such actions could spark trade wars, hurt American consumers, and undermine the checks and balances at the heart of the U.S. system. Now the Supreme Court faces a pivotal question. Did Congress, in granting these powers, effectively give away its core constitutional authority to tax and regulate trade? Or has the executive branch simply stretched its mandate too far, testing the limits of presidential power? The court's decision will set a precedent for generations to come, shaping how much economic power a president can wield in times of crisis and beyond. It will influence not just trade but the very structure of American government. As the nation awaits the outcome, the boundaries of American governance and the future of presidential power hang in the balance. At the core of President Trump's aggressive tariff strategy lies a little-known but powerful law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. Passed in 1977, IEPA was originally designed as a legal tool for presidents to respond swiftly to genuine national emergencies. Situations like war, terrorism, or grave threats to the nation's security. The law gave the executive branch sweeping authority to freeze assets, block transactions, and impose sanctions, but only under extraordinary circumstances. Historically, IEPA was used to target hostile foreign regimes, freeze the assets of adversaries, or punish countries supporting terrorism. It was never intended as a tool for routine economic policy or to settle trade disputes. For decades, presidents invoked IEPA sparingly and always in response to clear, urgent threats. But the Trump administration broke with tradition. By declaring trade deficits and foreign competition as national emergencies, Trump used IEPA to bypass Congress and unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs on trading partners like China and Mexico. This marked a dramatic expansion of presidential power, shifting the definition of emergency to include economic challenges that previous administrations handled through negotiation or legislation. Critics from both political parties argue that this move distorts the original intent of IEPA and sets a dangerous precedent. They warn that allowing the president to declare almost any economic issue an emergency could undermine the balance of power and erode congressional authority over trade policy. Legal scholars caution that if a president can label any economic challenge as an emergency, the limits on executive power become dangerously vague. This raises fundamental questions about the separation of powers and the future of American democracy. In response, federal judges have pressed the administration to clarify the boundaries of its authority under IEP, signaling deep concern about the potential for unchecked executive action. The courts are now grappling with how far a president can go in using emergency powers for economic policy. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's decision will be pivotal. It will determine whether IEPA becomes a routine tool for economic policy at the president's discretion, or whether it remains a last resort measure reserved for true national crises, preserving the careful balance of power envisioned by the Constitution. The tariff debate has split the nation. Supporters see tariffs as a way to protect American jobs and industries, arguing they force fairer trade deals and rebuild the nation's industrial base. The administration touts billions in tariff revenue as proof of success. Critics, including most economists and business groups, call tariffs a hidden tax on Americans, raising prices and creating economic uncertainty. Retaliatory tariffs have hurt farmers and exporters while businesses struggle to plan for the future. For many, tariffs are less a solution and more a self-inflicted wound on the economy. Beyond the courtroom, tariffs hit home. Families pay more for everyday goods, appliances, clothes, even food, as costs are passed down the line. Lower and middle-income households feel the pinch most, turning tariffs into a regressive tax. Small businesses face higher costs and tough choices: raise prices, cut jobs, or absorb losses. Manufacturers reliant on global supply chains see their competitiveness erode. Farmers suffer from lost export markets due to retaliatory tariffs. In a global economy, tariff walls send shockwaves through every sector of American life. The Supreme Court's ruling will shape American governance for decades. A win for the administration could permanently expand presidential power, letting future presidents impose tariffs by declaring economic emergencies. This risks chaos in trade policy and weakens Congress's constitutional role. A ruling against the administration would reaffirm that only Congress can levy taxes and regulate commerce, restoring checks and balances. The government might have to refund billions in tariffs, injecting capital back into the economy. Ultimately, the court must decide: Will America be governed by a single executive, or by a system of shared power and accountability? The answer will echo far beyond the courtroom, defining the future of democracy in America.